Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers Podcast Holiday Edition. I'm your host, Zero but you can call me Zero. And just like always, I'm joined by Soldier by Night, aka Soldier. What's new with you, man? What have you been playing lately?
Mm,
Assuming you had time for games over this holiday, which has been insanely busy for both of us, which is why this is like almost 2 months later than our last episode.
every time we're like, yeah, we'll be quicker with it next time, and then it gets longer. So, yeah, it's been nice. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think God of War really just took me away, and it is my most like divisive game that I've played in a long time, just because I'm a big God of War fan, and yeah, I haven't had a game that I've loved and hated almost equally, and that's what kept me in it. I left it at 2 trophies until I completed it for platinum and just decided to leave it like that. I got almost 60 hours in. But that was really what took me all this time since it launched. I got Pokemon Violet. We both did. Well, you got Scarlet, but I decided to finally update my game, by the way. I know I was like kind of waiting until but I was like, screw it, it's okay. No big deal. I know they patched some stuff there, but to avoid any kind of duplications or whatever, right?
Well, you covered two of our topics already, talking about we're gonna speed run this thing. Haven't talked in a month, and we're just gonna have a 15-minute
Mm.
podcast.
Oh yeah.
I want to go into that though because you had a legendary rant talking about God of War that just blew me away the last time we talked. So I want your thoughts on it because this is coming from the perspective of a fan who's played all of the God of War games. You played Chain of Olympus on PSP, so you've played every game in the franchise to have an opinion as a long-standing fan. So what are your in-depth thoughts on it? You said you loved and hated it. There's no game you've loved and hated more than this game. So what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, man. And to be clear, yeah, Chains of Olympus. I'm glad you recognized the spin-off, but also the following one was Ghost of Sparta on PSP, which is arguably the better game on the portable.
I knew I missed one.
Yeah, so there was five before we got the 2018 game. And there's also some comics, but it's debatable on whether some of those are canon or not, kind of explaining some things as to why or how Kratos ended up in the Norse mythology. Because going from Greek to Norse, it's like there's so many explanations online from what I've seen. I don't know if anything is like 100, but it sounds like there's just the different mythologies can kind of exist because they know about each other. There's lore in the game that characters from Norse know about the Greeks and stuff. And I did enjoy some of those conversations they had, and interactions between characters, and they really built on the foundation that they had, which is what I wanted from 2018, which they did very well, right? The mechanics and the combat, they got improved in some ways, and in other ways they felt different, and I got used to them after some time. But and this is the easiest way I could say it, right? Like, yeah, I don't want to go in just bashing the game or anything like that. I really want to give it my true, honest opinion, with the highs and the lows. And at first, I actually really liked the combat because I thought it was fun and all that, right? And it meshed well. There's a good gameplay loop with the puzzles and everything. But little things started chipping away at me as we went on with it, and one of them was just the fact that you're playing the game and you never want to play a game and beat a boss or beat an area and go, man, I never want to go back there. And it sucks when you do. It sucks when you do because you're trying to complete something like a mini quest, or you're trying to collect something and there's no way to fast travel out, so you have to go through these long crawling spaces. And because you've maybe already accessed the dialogue, it's not playing again, so you're just silent. It's okay after Ragnarok post game and everything like that. You're like, okay, things are a little quieter and stuff like that, right? But I've never been talked to like this in a game, almost down to in some ways, or like.
So is this a wait a minute that card type of deal?
I mean, you'll be fighting a boss, right? And you'll have a companion because you mostly have a companion throughout the game at all times. Like, there's only a few times where it's just Kratos. And I think there's like one time or a few times where not even Mimir, your talking head is around, right? So the way they talk to you, man, they're just very, very pointed at what you're doing wrong and what you should be doing. And it'll catch you off guard because you might be about to figure it out, whether it be a puzzle or in a battle. But it annoyed me both ways because I'd get right to a puzzle, boom, get some dialogue that just trips you out, man. Like you don't expect it because you're like, okay, I was actually having fun thinking about this, but now this character's just telling me what the resolution is, and I didn't even have a chance at it, right? Whereas when you're in a battle, it's like, hey, you know that shining thing that you're just looking right at and you're about to throw your lance at or whatever? It's like, okay, now maybe you should hit that. And I wish there was a way to kind of go about dumbing that down.
Maybe a setting or a toggle.
Yeah, I mean, thought that crossed my mind, and I want to revisit this is, I played this game, and the reason why I also played the crap out of it is because I told myself as I was playing it that I would not play it again. And it's kind of sad because I remember with the previous game, although I didn't, even though they came out with New Game Plus later after release as a free, update, we might get the same thing here, but I'm not going to play it again. I didn't have any intent playing the game to. That's why I went so far. I didn't even collect everything in the first game, but I did enjoy my time and I was happy with what I got. In this game, I was completing it so that I didn't have to look back at it again.
Feeling like you'd be obligated to come back to it in a New Game Plus.
That's right. I even went back to characters like who would say, "Hey, did you kill so and so?" And so I killed so and so, came back to them. They had a special little dialogue. You got no trophy for that. It was just lore. I even went back to all the spots where something would trigger just to get that piece of lore because I cared about it and I wanted to know what they got away with. I just feel like some things were rushed. Ultimately, things were rushed, maybe to get this game out for the holidays. And it's disappointing because I feel like even in development, things were cut that could have made the game a lot better. I know a lot of people aren't really happy with Atreus, just with the way he acts in the game. And as a companion character, it's really annoying having a companion character you can switch to and actually use in their own little mini story. Like there's several hours in the game that are actually dedicated to switching from Kratos to Atreus. Because in the game, not sure if you're familiar, but you just play as Kratos. So kind of going away from Kratos, playing a different play style was very refreshing. But then when you switch back to Kratos, Atreus doesn't use any of his moves that you would use as you were playing away from Kratos. Like he doesn't have all of his cool powers or anything. I know I'm asking for too much there, but that was kind of a downer for me because I'm like, I'm building up this character and then he just stands around. He was better as a younger kid in the previous game. I was like, how the heck did they mess this up? Anyway, there's another companion that I like a little bit better, but even they are a bit more, just kind of dead when they're not, doing their own thing, I guess. But you don't get to play as that character, so it's a little different to explain. Either way.
So what would you rate it after having said all of that and getting all your grievances out and thinking back on the things that you really liked about it and built upon the first God of War? If you had to give it on a scale of 1 to 10, someone held a gun to your head and say, review this game with a score now, what would you give it based on your experience?
I'd give it a 6.
A 6?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the reason I asked that is because until you had told me your thoughts, it caught me by surprise because I've heard nothing but praise for it. I've heard a couple complaints about basically the interactive hallways where they're just like glorified cutscenes where they're having you like climbing a wall while having this whole conversation.
When we have something like GTA 5 out, and this is supposed to be next gen, I mean, it's not. It's a PS4 game that's just, upscaled a bit for PS5. Maybe some of the loading screens are a little bit better, but man, when you have something like GTA 5 from 2000,
13, 14?
12, 13? It came out on PS3 and 360. You have something like that? Yeah, sure. You go make a coffee and maybe eat a snack 5 to 6 minutes from when you boot it.
September 2013.
Oh, okay, 2013. But yeah, you boot up the game, you wait 5 to 6 minutes, guess what's loaded? The whole game. How the heck is something from just about 10 years ago have a better loading mechanic. That's I'm glad you brought that up. Um, and I mean, it's hard to give it a numbered value as a rating. But if a gun was to my head, I'd give it a 6. I would even lean toward a 6.5, because it is fun. I had fun. I just expected more, and I think my expectations, which is more of a personal problem, maybe that's why some people didn't. I just think that some people were swayed to like this game and might even be too proud to deny that the game has some flaws. I did like the twist in the story; those were good. Some emotional moments and character building was great. Do I like how Kratos is portrayed in the new versions? No. One of my favorite kind of smaller YouTuber reviewers reviewed this game, and they said they liked this version of Kratos than they ever did in the previous games, right? In Greece. And to me, that tells me that someone who did not play those games and really pick up on all of the nuances that Kratos has, that has shown that he cares and he's a loving person, even though he's full of hate and vengeance, and he literally killed his entire pantheon, right? But that's not all he is. So when I see people go, well, now he's like disciplined, and now he's a good father, and he's trying to set up a good example for his son, and he's grown, he's mature, he's a real man now. I'm like, no, you're wrong. He was always that. You didn't pick that up. So like, just calling out anybody who says that about him, because I don't believe that. I mean, that's why I love this character, is because he has multifacets, but he's not someone that is just outright about it. He's someone who's you got to peel the layers as you go, and you find that out. But I don't know. I wanted him to rip somebody's fucking head off. Like, the whole time he's just like, he gets in, he's like a monk in some ways, and that's fine. And I'm all about peace and love and all that, but this is not my Kratos, and that's what I took away from it, is that this is no longer the Kratos that I loved, that I grew up with. They've taken a direction that I don't care about, that I think most of they know the masses will care, because he's changed. Fuck that. That's how I feel about that.
Woo! Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So I'll give you my thoughts on it, because this is coming from the perspective of someone who didn't play either one of the two God of War games. Like, I heard the 2018 one was good, but I just it looks a little too much like a lot of Sony's other projects, where it was basically just kind of like a walking simulator, And I didn't want to have that kind of experience. It's basically just another cinematic Sony game like The Last of Us and whatnot. But you surprised me when you told me your opinion of it, because leading up until that conversation, all I've heard was nothing but good things about the game. It's getting rave reviews, 94 on Metacritic, and most people online have sung its praises. There's a few nitpicks like the hallways, and just the biggest one I saw was kind of the intrusive hand holding with some of the characters' dialogue when you're trying, like you said, solving a puzzle or trying to find a boss's weakness. Maybe they pipe in just a little too early, don't give you enough time to really figure it out on your own. But you're not actually alone in that, because I'm looking at like the Metacritic score, and while it's a 94 from the critics, the user score is a 7.9. That tells me most people enjoyed the game, but they were kind of let down by a lot of aspects of it. Like, it's a game that reviews well. It's put together in a presentation that critics like, but it's not necessarily the type of game that seasoned players or seasoned fans of the franchise would want. Like, it didn't live up to its full potential, and it was hyped to Kingdom Come and back. It was hyped to Grease and back leading up to it, because it was the big holiday title for Sony.
That's it, and it feels like they, it felt like they were backing it up, and it's almost like it was like the awards themselves were rigged to kind of cater to. It's really unfortunate. I know they sold a lot of PS5s because of it, okay, and I know that matters to a company like that, but it just sucks for the diehard fans, even if we are in the minority. And like you said, maybe not too much of a minority when you're looking at a user score like that, because a user score tells you a lot, especially if there's a disparity between the two.
doesn't look like it's one of those situations where it's just like Xbox fans randomly review bombing it because it's not like comically low like some other games are. So it looks like that's a pretty general consensus. 7,000 ratings just about. So I mean that's a pretty good finger on the pulse of how people feel on it. And I will say though, you mentioned the awards being kind of rigged and whatnot. So we're not going to go too far into the game awards. That's going to be our next episode, our first podcast of the new year. But I still, to this day, don't understand how this won Best Soundtrack over both Sonic Frontiers and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I don't understand it. I really don't. Like, have you listened to the Sonic Frontiers soundtrack?
I have through you, and I haven't on my own, but I've played the game just for a few hours and enjoyed what I heard. And I'm stunned that that game has such good. In fact, I was hanging out with one of our friends last week, and he kept saying, "Was it Pokemon that we were listening to before we were watching the Sonic movie that Zero was streaming?" And I said, "No, that wasn't Pokemon, man. That was Sonic Frontiers. He was just playing like music from the game, like from the levels and everything." And he was like, "Wow, that stuff was it had no business being that good." And that's what he said. And uh, I agree with him.
Yeah, I had to make my own podcast or not podcast, my own playlist of like all of the cyber levels, the cyberspace levels, as well as all of the boss themes and supersonic themes from the game. And that's like 57 tracks deep. So even cutting out all of like the cutscene things and the jingles, like there's still, 50 plus songs that are all really, really good. Like the cyberspace levels are phenomenal, all of them. And I can't believe it didn't win. Like Xenoblade 3 also had an incredible soundtrack with a bunch of different songs. And one of the more impressive things about Xenoblade 3's soundtrack is the fact that there was so many songs. I saw like a list of all of the nominees for the best soundtrack award and how many hours or minutes of unique songs there were. And Sonic Frontiers and Xenoblade 2 were at the top with, I think Sonic Frontiers had like 7 hours of music, and then Xenoblade 3 had 12 hours of music. And then God of War was somewhere in like the 3 to 4 hour range. So it's just in variety, both of those games trumps God of War. But in quality as well, like there's so many good soundtracks. The boss themes in Xenoblade 3 are some of the best I've heard. I know some of the environment themes are kind of mixed. Some people didn't like them because they were a little bit more ambient. They didn't have as much like catchy melody to them. They weren't stuff that you'd be humming to yourself, but the soundtrack itself was still really good overall as a whole. So it's crazy that neither one of those won over God of War, but we're going to save the rest of that for the Hard Game Awards show. You mentioned Pokemon. You thought your friend thought it was a Pokemon song, so that's our next topic. We got to talk about Scarlet and Violet. It's been out for God knows how long at this point. What is that? A month and a half now since Scarlet and Violet's released.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How do you like it, man?
it's funny. It's going to sound very similar to your answer with God of War. It's the most fun I've ever had playing a Pokemon game, but also it's an embarrassment of a final product that should never have been greenlit to release in this state. It's so bad. There's no excuse for a piece of software from the most profitable franchise in the world to look and run the way that this game does as a final product state. And we've had a couple patches here and there that supposedly addressed a few things. They didn't say anything about performance, which is noticeable because it still plays just as poorly as it did on release. And some people were thinking like, oh, well, no, it did improve performance, but it was just a placebo effect from having to reboot the game from applying the update, because most people just keep the same game on and just put it to sleep for days on end. And the memory leak is what's causing a lot of the performance issues. Not all of them. It still runs like trash, even from a fresh boot, but that also contributed to a lot of people thinking performance is improved. Like it's so bad.
Just such a disappointing thing because I think the only thing about the game I don't like is the aesthetic they went for.
It doesn't have an art style.
No, it has no identity in terms of something that lasts by. It was so ambitious that even its style is too ambitious because, I mean, even Alola had more of a style that defined itself.
Yeah, it was very tropical.
Yeah, and even those on the 3DS, man, you remember that game actually had a small bit of performance issues on the regular non-new 3DS.
especially with 3D on. Although I think at Sun and Moon that might have been when they started.
They cut it out. They cut it
Yeah,
out.
they cut 3D out outside of battles, didn't they?
Yeah, they cut it out, and the battles were the ones that were having the performance like frame drops. Um, so from what I recall, if you played it on the new 3DS, it was a little bit better. But even then, man, I mean, we've come a long way, and it's like it's on the Switch. I hate that with Sword and Shield we never talked about performance, and now it's like now we're talking about a new topic. It just has to be something else.
Yeah.
It is nice that they acknowledge something, on Nintendo's part for Game Freak. Almost makes me feel like Nintendo was like, "Hey, get this out before the holidays." Game Freak was like, "Oh, well, this is what we've got." Then that's what Nintendo would handle PR, and maybe because they're the ones that push that agenda, they're the ones that are owning that, which is fine. But I do wish we heard a little bit from the development team or even just Game Freak too, because it's cool hearing it from Nintendo. Sure, that's fine. But all I see is this, right? Money. All I see is, okay, well, they're just trying to keep us at bay for, being unhappy. But really, they could tell us what they're working on or give us a roadmap. Heck, even Cyberpunk with CD Projekt Red had something like a timeline. Like, hey, by this quarter, we're planning this patch. We've got DLC on the way, all of that stuff, right? We have nothing in that way, right? And it's been 2 months of them. Yeah, like just about, yeah, almost going to be 2 months in a few weeks, of them just making the most money that they've like ever made for a game release. And that's something we have to think about, because we can't let that continue as fans. I mean, they're going to keep buying them. I know.
Yeah.
We're going to keep buying them. But
The people that care about performance issues are so small. Even if there's a million people that really are bothered by the performance issues, there's another 10 million kids that aren't paying attention to that, or just, someone else bought it for them, so it's not their decision anyway. But I think with you mentioned something about like Nintendo rushing them to the holidays. I don't think that's a Nintendo thing. Think about it. Historically, Nintendo has been okay delaying games until they were ready. And even in the Switch era, there's several games that have been delayed in order to make sure that they looked good on release. And I think that's more of a Pokemon Company Game Freak type of deal, where it's just a matter of they want to meet deadlines because of things like the new season of the anime, the new card game expansions, merchandise. Because I saw a report that they make, I think, like 70% of their profits on merchandise.
maybe it's Pokemon Company,
I would think so.
right?
Yeah.
Rather, because I know that's separate from Game Freak 2. I mean, it's a part of Pokemon Company, but
And Creatures Inc. as well.
right.
They're in there somewhere in this formula.
Maybe Nintendo will handle it because of the overarching, handle communications that way. But I just wish we did get a little bit more. And I agree with you. There's too many things lining up that they know they have to release. Ash is retiring
Finally! It's
from
about time!
his journey. He is now 25 years old, or 26 or something,
He's 10 going on 27.
which is great. Good for Ash, and also good for a new generation getting a brand new protagonist that
Yes.
may or may not define the next, you know, uh, future of the Pokemon anime, and also affect all the merchandise and everything. So I'm sure, and please let me know if you agree with me. I think I'm speaking for many people when I say this. One of the best parts of Scarlet and Violet are the designs for the Pokemon and how detailed they are. And I think that a lot of the effort went into those, along with the mechanics and the new mechanics and stuff, right? I do like the terastallizing, but the details, I love seeing the hair and the fur, and the animations are good, overall, and
Outside of like move animations, because they still are pretty goofy and
but
corny, but I get what you mean. Like,
at the same time, we shouldn't be praising these things, but I like to bring them to light because of all the negative, just to balance things out. It's like, okay, well, you did do this thing right, and we've wanted it for a while. We never got it. Um, it's like the one thing about the aesthetic I like. If that's what comes with this aesthetic is like nice Pokemon, then okay. Um,
Sure, like you could see not just fur, but like scales and things like that. Like they do look good in that respect. The 3D models have always been a strength of the Pokemon games, even going back to X and Y. And that's why those games struggled so much on the 3D hardware. There were so many polygons in those models, the 3DS just could not handle rendering all of those on that ancient technology that it was even at the time when it was new. So, I mean, you're right. Those are big successes. Character designs and Pokemon designs. Like, this is probably the best generation cumulatively, considering all of the new Pokemon added in terms of strong character designs of the Pokemon. Like, it's so many good designs. Like, most of the starters look great. Sorry, Quaxley fans, you lost. But other than that, everyone else looks really good. I think Skeledirge is just an awesome final starter. And Meowscarada is a cool concept. I wasn't a big fan at first of the design, but it's definitely grown on me. It's that Phantom Thief magician type of deal. So it's a really cool
I'm
theme.
with
Uh, we can't not talk about Armor Rouge and Cerule Edge, which are two of like the coolest Pokemon ever made.
They really are. I mean, you have them both, right?
I do.
Do you like using Do you like using one more over the other from what you've played around
I
with?
haven't really played with them in combat. I've only caught them for the Pokedex so far. To be honest with you, I kind of got burnt out on Scarlet already because I've beaten the game. I've filled the Pokedex. I went on a couple shiny hunts, and I kind of just went back to Persona 5 Royal because I haven't finished that. And I only hop in occasionally to do like the event raids. Like I did the Charizard was the last one I did. I know they've got Cinderace going on right now. I think I need to jump back in and do that because the 7-star raids give you perfect IV Pokemon, so it's like you might as well.
You catch more than one or just one?
For the event ones, you can catch one of each. Like you can't like farm them in terms of catching more and more, but you can rebattle them and get the rewards, and they do give a lot better rewards than like the normal 6 stars. But just going back to the content of the games as well, I really like the structure of it with the 3 different paths that you can take and the champions path where you go through the 8 gyms and fight the elite 4 and the champion. That's just one section of it. So like it's not the primary goal this time. You still have to ultimately do it in order to progress to like the final chapter after you beat all 3 routes. But I like that it's not like the main thing anymore, and it allowed them to do some different things with like the was it the Titan Pokemon as well as like the Team Star stuff, which was the gameplay elements for it were like whatever, but it was something different at least. It was a pace breaker. I like the story of the Team Star members, so that was kind of cool. And we actually got a decent story, even though there's no voice acting, but that's another topic for another day. But the final chapter, have you beaten it yet?
No, I'm still working on the Herba Mystica, which is the Titans.
Okay, so I won't talk about that final route yet. I'll save that for once you do finally beat it because it's awesome.
I'm happy with the balance that the game has in terms of making your own story. Or I like being able to play the game in whatever way I want. That part was a big one for me, just because I like to go out and explore, and I did just that, and I still am. Going to gym leaders that are way higher level now that I have Pokemon that have leveled up on their own just by exploring, catching, you know, doing the auto battling has been great too. I learned to really enjoy that because I can just kind of explore. Sure, it's helpful for shining hunting and knowing if you're fighting a shiny too. If you're not sure if you're what the shiny might look like,
Which is good because a lot of the new Pokemon have really dumb shinies that look exactly like their originals. Like I don't know why they keep doing
exactly.
this. Ceruledge and Armor
Right.
Rouge are perfect examples. They changed just the eyes and nothing else. Like, why? Why do you keep doing this? Stop Garchomping them.
Is Charcadet? Is that what his name is?
Yeah, Sharkadet. I don't even think Sharkadet looks a whole lot different.
It's probably just like some small detail.
It might even be the eyes for Sharkadet as well. Blue eyes instead of red. That's all you get. Everything else is exactly the same for Sharkadet.
Oh, they could have been more creative about, we had a dang item finder back in the day. Now we don't have hidden items. I do miss hidden items. I know probably no one misses hidden items but me, but I thought it was clever because sometimes they would make little like areas that looked like they went nowhere and you just pressed A on them and then you got
Yeah, it allowed them to flesh out the world in a way that wasn't like obvious, you know, like why
Yeah.
it allowed them to make a lot of like dead ends and areas that didn't look like they would lead anywhere, and just the incentive to think, hey, there might be a hidden item there, even if they don't put one at every single one of those dead ends. There was still the possibility that you would walk there and get something valuable out of it. So it does kind of ruin the exploration factor in that sense, because it's like, you know, why would you go to that dead end? You can clearly see there's no Pokeball icon, there's no Pokemon spawned there. There's no reason to go there. Let's just go to the more populous areas. I get it. It's a big game. You know, they can't fill every nook and cranny with something, but
And conversely, you have at least the red Pokeball lights that you can approach, which replenish and every time you play the game or even leave an area, maybe. Um,
I think the yellow ones do too after time,
mm,
because they're just TMs and they're one use again. So I believe the yellow ones do respawn as well.
I don't know. I mean, you might be right about that. I was just gonna say I think the yellow ones are the ones that don't, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, I was just gonna say that the yellow ones I always thought were the ones that were just one time. I mean, I know they're one time because they're TMs, but I thought that was something of an incentive to go into a small little like peak, because they do put those more strategically placed compared to others. And maybe they do replenish, but they just go replenish. Maybe they do replenish, but they just go to that spot. They just come back at that spot.
And you got the gimme ghouls as well. If you're trying to collect those tokens, they're kind of like the Korok seeds of this game, except you kind of need them because if you want to get Goldango, which is one of the best competitive Pokemon of the new generation, you got to get 999 of those coins. So they found different ways to make hidden items, so to speak, something that you can look for. But I get what you mean. It was always kind of nice. Like, even if you didn't see something there, you'd still go check it just in case.
You think about the Mario Bros. Trailer that was dropped, or did you want to save that for the the next the next podcast?
Oh, we could talk about it now. I mean, by the time the next episode comes out, the movie might be out. So this might be our only chance to talk about it pre-release. So when I put that topic on there, there originally only was one trailer, and it was just the big reveal one that they hyped up, and we finally got to see what was going on. And then since then, we had the Game Awards show happen where we did get an extended look as well. So we can kind of talk about both of them at once. Uh, I'll start and just talk about the first trailer, the one where we got to see like Peach's new design and how everything looks in motion with the voices. And I'm really impressed. The Sonic movie set the bar pretty high for video game movies. And same thing, even going back to the Detective Pikachu movie, it was a really good adaptation of the games in an enjoyable format. It's not like a cinematic masterpiece or anything, but they're enjoyable times and have a lot of cool things for fans. But the Mario movie looks like it's taking it to another level. Like when you saw like the leaked posters and whatnot, it looked kind of weird, but everything just looks right in motion with Illumination Studios, and that makes sense. I mean, Nintendo's not going to let them mess up their big franchise that they've learned from that horrible live action Mario movie back in the day. But it looks really good. I love the environments. They look so nice. The Mushroom Kingdom looks incredible. Like they didn't try to make it look like, oh, what if it was a real life place? Like they kept that video gamey feel to it where there's still blocks just floating in the air for no explainable reason and things like that. And Bowser actually seems evil. Jack Black nails it as Bowser, and I could kind of see where they're going with like some of the comedy with like the Penguin Army saying charge, and they're just throwing snowballs at Bowser, and he's just like, really?
We might have the biggest, blockbuster hit next year with this Mario Bros. Movie, just because Nintendo has never really endorsed or allowed, or and it's a big risk having Hollywood actors
Very big.
voice characters that have never had voices like this, right? Sure, they've had voices in game, but never dialogue that was, sure, in more of the RPG Mario games, we learn more from these characters and how they are, but again, never voiced. So, and having famous people, that I'll still never forget, Donkey's reaction video to the reveal is one of my favorite in recent time reaction videos, just because the Chris Pratt. He's so cool. It's so good. So silly. And speaking of Chris Pratt, yeah, I like the latest teaser trailer that came out that I watched not even an hour ago now.
Yeah, you missed it because you didn't watch the 3.5 hour show that was the Game Awards. But yeah, no, the second trailer it was more of it wasn't like a trailer. It was more of just like a sampling of an unedited clip from the movie directly. So we get a good contrast between like cinematic trailer that's just trying to show you different parts of the movie and versus, hey,
Yeah.
this is kind of what you're going to expect from the movie itself. Like this is what it actually looks like. And hearing more of Chris Pratt's voice does give me more confidence going into the movie because that first trailer was not it. Like he didn't sound great. It just sounded like his normal voice and it just sounded like he didn't want to be there. And which is crazy because we were all kind of skeptical with all these Hollywood actors getting hired and instead of going for like Charles Martinet for half the voices. And everybody else nails their role. Jack Black as Bowser is awesome. We got to hear Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, which it's for a movie, like that's the perfect voice for Peach, I think. And even Toad sounds great with the little up-toned version of Keegan-Michael Key's voice. So like it's everybody does such a good
Yeah.
performance from that first trailer, except for Chris Pratt. And hearing a little bit more of it in action in the second trailer, I think definitely helped him. It was a good decision to give Mario more voices in the second one. And I'm already forgetting about the best performance of all of them, Charlie Day as Luigi from the first one. I love Charlie Day. When I saw that casting, I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. And it was, so I'm very happy.
I was happy with it from the beginning, but hearing it with the characters, you can't beat it. I'm glad we've got a variety of different trailers to tide us over until the release, but that's going to be a hectic one. I'm sure people are going to dress up. It's going to be like,
oh yeah,
be a whole event, kids, adults. It's going to be something out of this world because it'll be something like how, we hyped we were when Phase 3 of Marvel was going on and everything was just like peak Marvel. And I guess before that, what do we have? Was it
Harry
like
Potter movies,
Harry
maybe?
Potter? Yeah, exactly. I was just going there. Lord of the Rings was great too.
The
and
Batman
even like
movies, the Dark Knight trilogy.
That's true. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Especially being in theaters to see, Heath Ledger's performance and everything. I'll never forget that. I believe that was 2008 to 2009.
I think it was 09, The Dark
It was
Knight.
09. Yeah, it is 09. You're right. I think it was an April release or March or April release or something. But
oh no, it was 08. Look at that.
was it 08? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And was it the end of the year? Do you remember? Or was I right about the months?
July. It was a summer movie, which makes sense. That's when you'd expect a big super film to come out. Yeah, no, that was a good time. I agree with you. It's going to be a big cinematic event. I'm bringing all 7 of the Koopalings here in my house to go see the Mario movie because it's going to be a good family time. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we move on with the Mario movies is, especially from the second trailer, the music. They're using actual music from the Mario games. They're remixing themes that, you got your classic jingle and they're jazzing it up. And it's kind of like what Mario Odyssey did to some of the old classic themes. And I love it. And that's probably my only criticism of the Sonic movies is they didn't use enough of the music from the source material. There was little winks and nods here and there, with his ringtone being the original Green Hill Zone theme. But like, they went more Hollywoody with the soundtrack. And I would have liked more, more songs and music taken from the source material, and that's something that the Mario movie clearly has on tap. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great movie.
I think the next Sonic movie should be more Sonic than humans, and I know there was that bit there where we, there's a bit more balance in the first one. I thought the first movie was good. I went back and actually watched it after watching the second one. And I liked how there was more, like Tails involvement and Knuckles. But I would like to see some of those classic levels and things brought into the movie space so that we can get a chance to hear some of those tracks, because maybe it'd be more fitting if we were in those worlds or we just had something brand new created just for the movie. Can you imagine having a kick-ass, OST for a Sonic film, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think they kind of missed an opportunity to like throw some references in from older like Sonic games, like the levels, for example, with the fact that he has the rings that teleport, like they're portals. And like in the first movie, if you remember, in the big sequence where Robotnik is chasing him around, he keeps using the rings to jump to other areas. Like he went to like Egypt and stuff, and like he went to like the top of a skyscraper. Why couldn't he use those rings instead to go to Hydrocity Zone? Or like they could have done more with referencing the source material. And it was definitely more Hollywoodified in that sense. So I'm hoping the 3 does that. It's definitely going to be more focused because spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen 2 yet. There's going to be Shadow in Sonic 3. So
Yeah,
we're
Shadow.
there's going to be more story taken from the source material, especially because even though there's going to be humans involved, we already know how the humans were involved with that story in Sonic Adventure 2 with Maria, and like there's already a link to the humans there, so they don't have to kind of make up a bunch of stuff for the humans to do in there. That lore is already in place. So hopefully Sega sees and Paramount sees what Mario is doing and says, "Hey, we should probably put more references." And I'm pretty sure I've seen like interviews where the producers have even said that, like, "Hey, we want to put more stuff from the games in the future movies." So we'll see what happens. I think 2024 is when the Sonic 3 is slated. They've got plenty of time to make adjustments or do whatever it is they need to do. But I want to move on here and we don't have to talk about this too much, but I just thought this was a really cool thing. Digimon Survive tops 500,000 units worldwide in sales. And this was as of 4 weeks ago, so it might be a little bit more now. But the fact that this visual novel style tactical RPG sold 500,000 copies when it came out like the same week as, I think it was Pokemon, the same week as Pokemon, and still managed to get 500,000 copies is huge.
What do you think attributed to the success of that release?
I think it was a combination of things like they did have a lot of delays, so there was a lot of like build up to it. People were excited for the game and waiting a long time for it, and the fact that like it just looked like a really good game. And even on Steam, it's got a 91%, 90%, positive review ratio. So like people really liked the game, and it also had a little controversy. I'm wondering if maybe that's what drew people to it, because as they say, all publicity is good publicity. And there was a lot of people that bought it like as fans of Digimon, but didn't pay attention to like the anything leading up to the game, and they were like, "What the heck? It's a visual novel. It's not even a full game." And just that created such an uproar of people complaining about it being a visual novel when it was never really advertised as anything else outside of having tactical RPG elements. Like it's kind of like Disgaea in that sense, where you have your tactical RPG battles, but all of the cutscenes are basically just visual novel style in between the maps. That's probably the best comparison I can make. It's the Digimon version of Disgaea. And that's a great formula for some people, but a lot of other fans that weren't really paying attention thought it was something else. And that kind of maybe blew it up and magnified it a little bit. But it's crazy that it did as well as it did, because I believe, let's see here, it came out July 29th. The reason I didn't pick it up because there was just too much that came out in that time frame.
They had really good marketing with the Digimon game, and I know that fans really just want maybe something that has a good story. I haven't played Next Order, so I can't tell for sure, like if that was a good direction for it, but I've seen a lot of good things about it. I do own it. I bought it recently. I'd like to play it sometime. But something to bring up here, since we're talking about Digimon, is a PSP game that never got westernized. It was a Japanese only PSP game called Digimon Adventure. And it's got overworld mons. It plays the story from the first Digidestined. Maybe it has some of season 2, but I believe it's just the original story. And it's called Digimon Adventure. And it was only in Japan. And I recently watched somebody playing a patched version of it that was recently released. And now you can play the entire game. And it runs really well. It looks super good. It's like 3D world kind of thing, right? It's not like the classic Digimon world style. It looks like an RPG that was like on the PS2, like a just a Japanese RPG game and JRPG. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up. We're talking about Digimon. I saw it recently. So for anybody who has a PSP or an emulator, I guess that might be a really fun game if you're looking for a more nostalgic and traditional gameplay style that we never got. It's got aspects of Pokemon. I believe you only have the Digimon that the Digidestins start out with, and not anything else. But you have your party members, and they digivolve. Their Digimon digivolve and stuff. So anyway, yeah, I'll have
That's
to.
good stuff. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and I'll have to check it out. Check out Survive sometime. I'm not really into the Disgaea playstyle. I've played like Final Fantasy Tactics and Ogre Tactics, and I think was it Gian d'Arc on PSP. I've played a few of those style games, and I
Yeah.
think they're cool. I think on DS or 3DS I played Stella Glow. I I think they're fun. I do like them, but do I ever finish them? No. And that's a big one for
It's
me.
funny because tactics RPGs, they always have like a ton of depth to them too. So there's usually like a ton of content. Since they're not trying to like make these like massive cutscenes and huge 3D models, like a lot of the focus just goes onto the gameplay itself. So I know what you mean. Like Disgaea games, I beat Disgaea 5 complete, and dip my toes a little bit into the post game because with Disgaea games, the main story is really just the tutorial. The fun begins after, and trying to get to the level thousands and whatnot, and getting higher ranked equipment, going through the item world and everything. But I never, especially now, I just don't have that kind of time to go through that. But I was happy to go through the story. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of content, but I want to tell you the reason I brought this up and wanted to talk about it for it reaching 500,000 sales. Listen to what it was up against in July. This is insane. So F122 came out on July 1st. We had the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series came out on July 8th. We had Stray come out July 19th, one of the Game of the Year nominees, and it blew up and had a ton of publicity. Live Alive came out July 22nd, another JRPG styled game. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 came out July 28th. Digimon Survive itself came out on the 29th, but then it also had to compete with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that came out the same day. Like, that's an insane gauntlet of games to try and go up against. And it still managed to get 500,000 copies. So Digimon fans showed up and bought the game.
They want more. That shows you how thirsty the fan base is to play a Digimon game, you know? And I hope that Bandai makes the right moves to sustain that hype, because if they're willing to buy a game that maybe most didn't really expect to buy, what if they ended up getting a game that they did, right? And now we've got Digimon and Pokemon, in the picture again, right? Together.
So you're talking about, Digimon, Pokemon, creature collectors, and sales. So it's a perfect segue into our next topic. We got to talk about Persona 5 Royal. Speaking of people who didn't expect things to sell, Atlas completely surprised by the fact that their games would sell well on other consoles that are not the Sony PlayStation. 1 million copies were sold for Persona 5 Royal ports as of, I want to say, like 3 weeks ago. Like, this is old news at this point. We're probably up to 1.5 million at this point. But it released on Steam, it released on Nintendo Switch, which was the big one, and it also released on Xbox PC with Game Pass. So, of those 1 million copies sold, I imagine the ratio of those being Switch copies has got to be up there like 70 to 80%. Because, Steam might have had some decent success, but it's probably could find other ways to play it if you have a powerful enough PC. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And if you're on Xbox, you really weren't incentivized to buy it there since it was on Game Pass. So they probably didn't sell a lot of copies directly on Xbox just because, like, well, it's already there in Game Pass. So why would I purchase it for $60?
Don't forget people who just get Game Pass to play a game that comes out. That happens quite often,
Yeah. And those don't count as sales. So, I mean, that 1 million copies isn't being contributed to by anything that was on Game Pass.
Oh, okay. And I misheard you then on that. So,
But yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. 1 million copies within the first like month of Persona 5 Royal releasing, because
it has to be Switch copies because
that's what I'm saying.
no, you're
Who else is buying it?
who else is? I mean, Steam, sure, that's fine, and Steam Deck, thank you for existing. That way people can enjoy it on there if they don't have any of the other consoles. Maybe they're PC only, or maybe that's their only PC they have access to, right? Either way, I love that it's more accessible, but I am still unhappy with what they did with the PS4 fans who were those are the OGs, right? These are the ones that made your game successful, and you did not incorporate an upgrade to save file or transfer save file. I'm not even asking for a free upgrade, okay? I have dropped that since the last time I spoke about it. Okay, fine. You're going to release it with a small resolution and frame rate bump. You can't charge me $60 and not include a function that almost any other game that continues to release for cross-gen includes a very small process to be able to upgrade your. It's such a long game. You would expect them to have that. There's nothing else new to the game outside of getting some of the DLC. I believe that they also included that in the PS5 version, but that's not difference enough in the save file and all of that, right? If anything, just add that stuff to the save file, upgrade it, boom, you're playing your save file there. So I just have to nitpick there.
No, I'm with you. That's the whole reason I'm not going to be playing Monster Hunter Rise on Xbox, because I would have loved to play that in 60 frames a second in 4K, but I'm not starting over my 90-hour playthrough again. I just don't have that kind of time. So I'm with you on that. It's really disappointing that we're going into 2023 and companies still don't have things like save data transfer normalized.
It just seems like a standard.
It really does.
And it's not like a.
It's not hard to do. It really isn't.
I've seen so many games do it. I did it on
The Witcher 3.
Even Crash Bandicoot, when they had, not only did it have a free upgrade for the It's About Time, the free update included a free save data transfer. And it's like, all of that was free. Like, I'm paying $60, I should at least get a save file transfer. I don't know. I'm with you with the Monster Hunter Rise, because here's something interesting. Not sure if you knew this, but, and you know what? Maybe this is why, I don't know all the ins and outs, but Hades, for instance, right?
Oh, I love that you mentioned
Great
that.
game.
I went back to playing that like a week ago.
It's so good.
It's good.
And the cross save is nice too if you have the PC version, but if you don't use cross save. You can't, which is sad because it seems like if something maybe is on Switch, it might be hard to transfer it, or cross play. I guess it just depends on the game, because obviously if you're playing Fortnite or any of those other games, but I know those are a bit different. It's just fascinating because it's like, how does that work with the PC version, but then not with the Xbox version or the PlayStation version? And you can't even at least go to the PlayStation version and then cross play that, or cross save that, sorry, to the PC. So it's like,
that's probably Sony. I'll be honest.
It's got to be branded, right? Yeah, it's got to be branded. Otherwise, I mean, we're lucky that PC is as open as it is, right? And heck, I bet PC players love that they don't have to pay for online.
I know.
When they play their games.
Ain't that the truth? It's crazy. Well, anyway, man, let's talk about next year. This is all in the past. This is all behind us. We're, as of the recording, 3 days away from the new year. 2023 coming in hot. There's a lot of crazy stuff coming that we already know about. And I'm sure tons of other games that we don't know about yet that we'll find out either at E3, State of Play, Xbox, whatever they do, whatever they call it, and then Nintendo Directs. So what are you looking forward to most playing? What are you looking forward to playing the most in the new year? We'll put it that way.
I would say I really want to play Dead Space again, and I'm a fan of Dead Space 1. I didn't play 2 or 3, but playing it, updated, remastered, remake, I think it is actually, since there is a difference there now. And that's really the one I'm most excited about. Resident Evil 4 I never got to beat, so playing that, also another remake, that's going to be exciting. Diablo 4 looks great. Final Fantasy 16. I would say in the order I even listed them as probably my level of excitement, but what does trump my first game there, Dead Space, has to be Tears of the Kingdom. I know that it's the most anticipated
Oh
one
yeah.
at the awards and in general, but I'm part of that crowd, and yeah, I gotta say that's probably my list. What about you?
So Tears of the Kingdom obviously is on there. We can't ignore the biggest game release of the year potentially. It's probably going to win Game of the Year next year. It's been in the oven so long, that thing better be cooked to perfection. But outside of that, of the obvious low-hanging fruit of Tears of the Kingdom, the one I've, especially in the last couple of weeks, that I've been really rolling up the hype for, I can't wait to play Fire Emblem Engage. This game looks so good, and it looks like a return to form. Like we talked about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet having a very bland art style and no cohesive like design language to it. And Fire Emblem Engage is like the exact opposite. It looks like a return to form in a lot of ways. Like it really gives me Fire Emblem Awakening vibes with just the very bright colors and the vibrant fantasy themed kingdoms. And the weapon triangle is back, and there is a gotcha system in it, but it's basically just like accessories, like the non-main lord character rings just give you like strength +1 or hit points +2, like not enough to like really affect the game, but seeing all of the old lords be a big part of the game is awesome. I can't wait to have Lucina again, of course, and Roy. Ike's gonna be there. Our boy Ike's there. Core and Byleth, like it's so good. The new character designs are a little hit or miss for me, to be honest. Like a lot of them are just like they look like they were straight out of a VTuber's YouTube channel, but a lot of them are really good as well. So, and the gameplay looks fantastic. They really, it looks like it's really tightened. The map design is really nice. There's a lot of layers and depth to it. I can't wait. That's going to be my big release for the next year, and it's early. That one comes out in January. I think January 20th. And aside from that, Disgaea 7 comes out next year. I can't believe we're already getting 7 after 6 just came out like a year and a half ago. But we've also got Atelier Iris 3, or Atelier Ryza 3, excuse me, not Iris 3. We got Octopath Traveler 2. I'm definitely picking that up. That comes out in February, along with Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Gonna have to pick that up for the kids for sure.
Oh, I didn't know about that. What's that?
Do you remember Kirby's Return to Dreamland on the Wii? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
porting it to the Switch.
No way. Extra stuff too? Since it's deluxe?
I don't know.
Or are they just saying deluxe because is it like the Mario Bros. Deluxe? It's like deluxe.
Yeah.
It's on here now.
It's here with better graphics. Enjoy it. That'll be $60 plus tip. I'm not sure. I know they showed something, but it's been a while since we saw the trailer, so we'll see closer to launch what it has. This is kind of a low-key one that I'm excited for. Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. I loved the first Theater Rhythm on 3DS, and every once in a while I'll get the itch for a good rhythm game, and the Theater Rhythm, it's going to have all of the songs from all of the Theater Rhythm games, and the DLCs are going to have things like Nier in it, and Kingdom Hearts, I believe, so there's a lot of variety in that game, so for sure that's going to be another underrated one for the year.
Real quick, I know we brought up Game Freak earlier, and you just brought up rhythm games. Harmonite on the 3DS was really good. If you ever played Harmonite,
I did. The whole reason I played it is because if you like perfected each world, you'd get an actual Game Freak song at the end of each world.
Yep, that was the bonus. I loved that game. And it was like a cheap eShop game. Another one that was good, but for the PSP was one called Gitaru Man. It was like Gitaru Man.
I remember that one. Yep.
That one was really fun. It had a quirky story. I really enjoyed the music in that. Let's not forget Elite Beat Agents. We could go on with the rhythm games. Sayonara Wild
They need to bring Elite Beat Agents back.
They do. I'm surprised they never made a 3DS follow-up.
Right? And Rhythm Heaven too. Like, where are these games? Like, come on.
But yeah, no, next year should be very exciting in general. One I'm not interested anymore. I'm sorry, Forspoken. I'm not sorry. It's not happening. I'm not gonna touch that game until it becomes $5.
How about Street Fighter 6 though? It looks really good.
It does, and I've been playing more not Street Fighter, but I've been playing more fighting games recently, and right now, actually before the 6th of January, if you've got the cash, Guilty Gear Strive is 30 instead of 60 right now, so it's half off,
Ooh.
which is a really good
And I
deal.
heard Strive was a really good game.
It's one I want to play, so next paycheck comes around, I'll probably snag the digital copy and play because I've been itching to play different, fighters and yeah, Street Fighter looks awesome next year.
It's so good. They brought like the cool factor back to Street Fighter. It's got a lot of like Street Fighter Third Strike and Street Fighter 4 vibes to it. It's very stylized. The characters don't look like they were made out of plastic like in Street Fighter 5. Like I hated the visual design for Street Fighter. It was so bad. 5 was terrible. I couldn't even bother with it, but
Yeah.
I'll probably pick up Street Fighter 6. I'm not very great at Street Fighter. Like I'm not competitive level or anything. Just enough to beat up my brother on occasion, but I'll definitely be picking up Street Fighter 6 and playing that, practicing my Ken. That's been my long-standing main, and I also want to try out Jury because Jury was a lot of fun in 4, but she plays so differently that I couldn't really learn her entire move set. But I'm gonna invest some time in actually playing Street Fighter 6 next year.
Wish we got like a brand new Marvel versus Capcom or even, any kind of mashup game. It would be cool to
Yeah,
have one where it wasn't even just one versus another brand. It's like, why not have a Smash Bros. Of those types of games? And I know they all play differently, so that's probably why they wouldn't want to step into that so that they're
they put Phoenix Wright in Marvel vs. Capcom. I don't want to hear that excuse.
I love it. Yeah, you're right. Which is a character that has never been in one. It's like having Captain Falcon be in Smash Bros. Right? It's just like that. But Capcom is way more vast, so they have all these quirky characters and they have all these kooky characters. But anyway,
Let's just go Project Cross Zone with it. Like get like 4 or 5 different franchises or 4 or 5 different companies with all of their franchises in there and just squeeze them all into one
and then
game.
make a sequel.
I need to go back and play those games. There was some really cool interactions with the characters in there. Like that was such a good fan service game.
It was exactly that, a fan service game. That about wraps up our time for today. Thank you for those who tuned in, and thank you for chatting it up with me, Zero. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to like or dislike. Tell us what games you're playing, if you've got any games you're anticipating for next year. As always, take care, everyone. Stay dandy, and happy gaming.